Welcome into the Skinny Podcast. It's the weekly Potpourri edition. I'm Richard Skinner, Local12.com digital sports columnist and editor. Along with Rick Boring, as always, it's presented by Blake the Attorney Maislin. Yeah, we're a day late on this. We understand it, but things happen in people's lives, and so we had to adjust, and we begged for your mercy, I guess, Rick. But we got a bunch to get to.
I did get some text this morning. People were worried about you, or like, did Skinny trip over another tree stand and break his elbows, or what's going on? So everyone's glad to hear that you're doing well and are fully healthy.
Yeah.
It was
more
so on my end this week. So Skinny, we're going to start with the Bengals. And there's a lot to talk about with the Bengals. We'll get into all of the press conference, Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow, all of that. But first, I think what everyone, the thing I was asked most about, that people wanted your take on the most, was what did you think of the seats not being cleared off and the massive backup at the gates for Sunday's snowy affair?
Yeah, so I kind of tied that into the game and the Joe Burrow performance itself, kind of all just what a cluster that whole day was. I mean, you actually had people that wanted to come to your crappy team's game, and you couldn't get them in. And then you couldn't accommodate them accordingly. You did the bare minimum. And if that speaks Bengals, that's Bengals in a nutshell. The bare minimum. We did the bare minimum. So it was the the Monday before. The Bengals were coming off the Thanksgiving week game. And so they had they were able to have they called it like an extra practice. So they were able to practice a little bit on that Monday, and they did it in the stadium. And we had snow either that Sunday. Remember, we had snow that weekend a little bit. And it snowed a couple inches. And so we went up to the press box to watch practice that day because it was really cold. And I literally go, golly, are they going to get the snow off the seats before they play the next home game? And somebody said, well, yeah, they don't play for another 2 weeks here. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Well, then, of course, we had the snowstorm over the weekend. And the first thing I did when I got in the press box, I went and put my stuff down. I usually have a routine of going to get something to drink real quick, coming back. And I kind of looked up. I went, is that snow still on the seats? And somebody goes, yeah, look at my man over in the club section, the one guy with the blower trying to blow the snow off the seats. I'm like, what are we doing?
I mean, the most disrespectful part of this whole situation was the quote the Bengals gave where it said, the walkways were fully cleared off, which was the priority. Our ushers can take care of the seats. Snow, Skinny, there was like 4 inches of snow on these seats. It's iced over and stuff. And you want your ushers, who are already freezing, with like a little rag to wipe that off or something? Like, what are we talking? That's insane.
If you're a decent human being, you're probably going to tip that usher $10 or $20 for the effort, right? So in addition to you paying whatever fee you're going to pay to go to the game for the exorbitant ticket price and for the overpriced concession fare, now they're going to ask you, hey, you shell out the extra $20 to this guy because we're not going to pay somebody $20 an hour to clean him off ourselves.
Well, also, like, think about the logistics of it. That's going to take a while. Like, it's not just, you don't just wipe 4 inches of snow off a seat real quickly. Now you got to sit there and wait for this guy to do it. And then your seat's completely freezing and wet. Correct. And I mean, it's just such an absurd concept that would only happen with the Bengals. And I got so many people saying, I cannot wait to hear what Skinny has to say about this ever since it happened.
Yeah, like I said, that Monday, I'm like, there's snow on the seats. I'm like, yeah, okay, they don't play for a couple. And then, of course, then it snows again, right? And they literally did nothing.
It's incredible.
They did the bare minimum.
The organization in a nutshell. That was the best way to put it. That's who they are.
The other thing is too, so we park you've parked there before for games. We park in the CRG garage. That's where they give us media parking, but also fans park in that garage too. It's a big garage. It's kind of the garage that's wedged in between the stadiums, for lack of a better term, because you can drive all the way through. That walkway from that garage to where we go into the game, or where people were going to go into the seats, that wasn't cleared off. In fact, a fellow reporter told me, he goes, literally, man, I almost slipped and fell. He goes, I don't know how I caught myself. I caught myself on like an edge thing. I said, yeah, I was taking real baby steps. I wasn't going to risk anything on that thing. So don't tell me all the walks were cleared.
Yeah, no, I mean, if they're not going to clear off the seats, they're definitely not going to clear off walkways outside of the stadium for you guys.
Yeah, correct. That's a good point.
Especially not for you media losers.
And they probably would tell me that's a city issue because it's a city, whatever.
Oh, of course, yeah. Blame it on the county. Actually, the county's paying for the stadium anyway. Skinny, the other thing that I thought was most interesting this week was the Zach Taylor press conference, and specifically Zach not confirming or denying whether or not he has 2 more years on his deal. He said to ask the front office. Weird situation. what did you make of it, first of all, and what should Zach have said here? I saw a lot of people criticizing him creating more controversy or drama unnecessarily, but I'm also curious, like, what is the right answer from Zach Taylor in this spot?
Yeah, I don't know what would have been so hard to say. Yes, I am signed through 2027. That is a fact. I mean, I don't know why
we
that
do
was
know
hard.
that, right? Like, it is definitely a
No, we don't know that, or we think that. I know in the story that originally cited it, there were no sources cited as saying that contract was done through 2027, but my guess would be it was. I could see, listen, he got a 5-year extension after going to the Super Bowl, understandably so. Then I'm going to guess after the AFC Championship game, his agent wisely went back to the Bengals and said, hey, dude had another good year here. Can we tack another year on to the end of it? And the Bengals, okay, sure, yeah, things are going along smoothly. And so
but not publicizing that is just such a Bengals thing. Like, it's so bizarre too.
Yeah, the thing I don't understand is when you did it after the 2022 AFC Championship game, I know Zach has had his detractors, but it was hard to be a detractor of Zach Taylor at that point after a Super Bowl and a AFC Championship game. Wouldn't you have wanted to announce that you've done that for another year? What's the harm in that? It feels like you were trying to hide it the whole time. And now that, and listen, I've always said that I didn't think he was going to be fired this year because he has another year left on his contract. Well, hell, if he's got 2 more years, he's definitely not going anywhere. And now I can understand why you'd want to be secret about it, but it was weird. So the tay-to-tay with the media members, and we've talked about this for a while as a group, a lot of times Zach, and I feel for Zach in this circumstance a little bit, that he's the public face on all of this. And so when we ask him about, things like this or personnel, and that's a question for Duke or that's a question for the front office, we finally said to ourselves, hey, the next time that gets thrown at us, we have to come back with, and I'll give Mike Petraglia full credit because Mike's the one that asked. Mike's the one that came back at him, so I'm going to give full credit where it's due. But we've talked about this as a group that we have to come back and say, well, we don't get to talk to the front office. And you could tell Zach was really taken aback by that, especially with well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a funny moment. Almost like, in a way, my read on it, watching Zach, this is all on YouTube, just watching the video back, was like, he almost felt like good about it. I thought, like, looking at him, he was almost kind of like, yeah, I know. Isn't that great? Like, now you see what we're dealing with here a little bit. Like, again, he backs them publicly, but it almost felt like that was a moment for him to kind of get a dig in at them without having to do it himself and kind of pointing it out like, yeah, I know we're dealing with an ass backwards situation here to some extent. Trags too. Trags is a kind of a unique guy, and the way he asks questions is kind of unique. So he was the perfect person to be in that situation. It made the whole standoff kind of dramatic and weird there in that press conference.
He gets a little heated at times.
He always feels like he's a little on edge during the press conferences, which adds a little bit of I don't know if contentiousness is the right word, but definitely some drama.
Yeah, and those of you that hopefully know, he and I do the post-game podcast together, and I think I'm the one that gets more heat on those podcasts than Trags, but I got to give him a lot of credit, man. He said exactly what we talked about saying, of once he throws it back at us, we have to let the public know that we've tried. In fact, we've put in written requests for Duke. I think we're putting another one in to try to talk to Duke, and I just don't understand why they don't make him available unless you're trying to hide something.
Zach Taylor doesn't have any other choice than to support the Bengals front office and say, hey, we're all on the same page. I think they're doing a great job, because like his wagon is hitched to them. They're the ones who believe in him currently and are keeping him employed. It's likely if he loses this job as Bengals head coach, he's not getting another head coaching job in the NFL, at least right away, I wouldn't think. So he doesn't have any other choice. But do you think he really believes that they have the right people in the right jobs and like things are functioning as they should? Do you think he really is confident in that situation, or do you think he finds them to be inept?
No, and I'll tell you why not. I thought one of the more interesting quotes from the other day was where he pointed the finger of blame at himself, and he said, I've got my fingerprints all over this, which, again, I don't think he has final say on personnel. He's obviously got input on personnel. His coaches have input on personnel. I found that to be a little interesting. Like, this isn't much on me. I mean, everybody's blaming Duke Tobin more than they are Zach Taylor. I think most fans are pretty much in lockstep of both of them. But I think if you were to point more, my finger of blame has mostly gone towards Duke. Yeah,
the media has done a good job of shifting that narrative and that blame over the last 2 months of like, hey, this is a Duke Tobin issue. Yes. You guys have all kind of pointed that out and done a good job of painting the narrative of why it is a Duke Tobin issue for the most part. But it also feels like there's no chance of that ever changing.
Yeah, and that's depressing, and that goes back to this. Well, let me give one more point here, and I think this would be Duke Tobin's answer to this if we ever do get to talk to him. Of why do you think, and this is the fulcrum question for him, of why do you think you deserve another chance to build this roster? And that was kind of asked in a weird way towards Zach. One of his answers was, we were in this spot in 2020, and look what we did in 2021 and 2022. Okay, this is a what have you done for me lately business. And you're going to get now a fourth crack at it after missing the playoffs 3 straight times. And in fact, I think we'd all agree the trajectory of this roster is going this way, not that way, right? And so the roster's gotten worse, not better. And you expect us to think that you guys are going to dig back out of this whole? What makes anybody think that that's possible with this current scouting department and personnel department? Just because you did it in 2021 and 2022, you don't get to keep taking a swing at it. I mean, coaches and GMs and baseball managers, they don't get to go, well, I went to the World Series in 1979 and I'm still here managing this club. No, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't.
Paul Dehner wrote a piece for The Athletic about who might stay and who might go in the Bengals organization. And basically, the gist of the article was, if you're a Bengals fan, you should expect them to run it back with everyone in the same positions next year, at least as things currently stand. He acknowledged, we don't have the full picture. If everything blows up the final games of the season, it gets really ugly, maybe things will change, I guess. But for the most part, where things are stand, what he's hearing is there's unlikely to be much change at all. Do you agree with that, first of all? And second of all, it seems like Duke Tobin is the logical answer, the thing that should change, the thing that everyone believes is the real issue right now, and is the sort of the one thing that you can turn right now, the knob you can turn and get a real impact immediately from it. If that's not going to happen, should there be any other type of changes? There
won't be. I think Paul was right. I wrote a column the same day saying if they want to rebuild your trust as a fan, they have to make changes. They're not going to, and he outlined it. Part of this is where the part of Zach's contract being through 2027 was involved. That's one of the main reasons why Zach's probably not going to get fired is He's not going to pay. And I've said this. I've said he wasn't going to pay him not to coach for 1 year. He sure as hell is not going to pay him to not coach for 2 years. You can damn well be guaranteed that. The Al Golden one was, you can't change coordinators again at that spot. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to go 3 straight years with 3 different coordinators and expect an upward tick.
I actually agree with that.
Yeah, no.
I don't think Al Golden should be fired for this.
Yeah, no, I think he laid it out. And then the Duke Tobin one is he might as well be part of the family. I mean, honestly, he's the capo di tutti capi. I mean, it's like a mafia family.
Yeah, so my thing is as much as it seems insane and depressing to hear there's going to be no change, and it absolutely feels like no one's being held accountable for not making the postseason the last few years. I also, if Duke Tobin isn't going to be fired, if you're not going to move on from Duke Tobin, I kind of get where there's not going to be any change, because you're not going to get rid of Al Golden after 1 year. That's just insane, especially with the players that you gave him to work with his first season. He may be terrible. He may stink, and you may have the worst defensive coordinator in all of the NFL, but only giving him 1 year without actual NFL players to work with is an insane move to just turn around and fire the guy. Who's getting that job next, who wants that job next. And
listen, I will say this. They have made him, they have improved since the bye week. I mean, they have. It's not improved.
That's the other part. He has actually shown some progress without having good players. So it would be insane to fire him right away. And with Zach Taylor, as much as you can certainly make the argument that the body of work and the last few years not getting into the playoffs is unacceptable from him, he also didn't have Joe Burrow for most of this season. And there's a clear, not saying it's right, not saying it's enough of an excuse, but if you're looking at it from the Bengals front office perspective and the way they operate, if they were ever going to give a coach another year, it's definitely this year where they didn't have Joe Burrow. They're not going to place that blame on Zach Taylor when he has multiple years on his contract. So if they're not moving on from Duke Tobin, then I kind of get where there's not going to be any changes, and I wouldn't expect them, to be quite honest, as much as that sucks to say.
Yeah, and that goes back to this. This is the be all end all with this. For those that keep wondering, the media need to hold them accountable and da da da. And I would tell you this: they don't care. They
Right.
don't care what anyone thinks. They just don't care. So I will throw it back at fans. If you want to hold them accountable, then you put your money where your mouth is. Stop paying for tickets. Again, I don't want to tell you what to do with your money, folks. I don't. But us in the media are not going to hold them accountable. They're not going to. They don't care. They don't care. What they care about is empty seats. And that's happened a couple of times. And they've made changes because of the empty seats. And that's the only thing that speaks to them is dollars and cents. That's literally it. Again, I know it sucks to have to say, but I like to go to games, and it's what I do in the fall and in the early winter months. And I get you, man. I do. But then don't bitch at anybody else when changes aren't done, because they just don't care. They care about money. That's literally it. That's what they care about. They care about money. They care about winning. They do everything in their power to win by getting more scouts, by getting a legit general manager. And they don't. They think their way is the right way because they've gone to a Super Bowl before. Every time they've gone to the Super Bowl, it's turned into a disaster shortly after that. 81, they went to the playoffs in 82. 83 was a losing record. 84 brought in Sam Weiss in 500. And Sam Weiss goes to the Super Bowl, and he goes to a playoff after. Then came the 90s, which is with a disastrous decade. They don't care. They just don't. So why? And I go back to that. So then why should you as a fan care?
No, and look, here's the thing that really sucks about all of this, and it's what we talked about last week with the college basketball thing. The issue right now is everywhere you turn as a fan, you're just being told you're the issue and you have to change what you're doing to make the sports team that you love work. And it's like, quit telling me I'm the problem. I'm just trying to give you guys my money and enjoy my entertainment dollar watching your team play. And every time I do that, someone tells me I'm the problem with why they're not having success. And it's like, that part of it sucks. I don't want to tell people, quit going to games, quit going to doing your tailgate and hanging out with your family on Sundays if that's what you like to do, because the organization is failing as a result of you doing that. Like that sucks to say too, but you're not wrong with what you're saying. Like, that's the only thing that does speak to the Brown family. And it just feels like we're in a never-ending cycle here, Skinny. I don't see how any of it ever gets better.
No, I don't either. And listen, there'll be a pocket of success here and there. And I think that's why you've seen, and I'm sure we'll get to this, that's why you've seen what looks like a broken Joe Burrow at the moment. Like that Buffalo game totally broke his spirit. I mean, like, I came back for this and the way he played on Sunday. Now, I'm not here to tell you that he can't be remade and reborn to some degree. I believe that can take place, but right now you're seeing a broken dude, and I'm super interested. It's an uninteresting game because it doesn't mean anything, but I'm super interested to see how he plays in a better weather game on Sunday in Miami against a not so good foe that's not going to put up a lot of points because Quinn Ewers is making his first career start. And so you're probably not going to have to score in the 30s to win this game. But that performance on Sunday looked like a dude who just has checked himself out.
Well, and going back to last week, you didn't agree with me, and the YouTube comments certainly didn't agree with me on what I was saying for coming out of his comments from the Ravens game. My point was not to assign blame to say that loss was on Joe Burrow. My point was to say that it's very weird for Joe Burrow in a game in which he throws 2 interceptions at the end of the game and is part of the reason that they lost the game to come out and say those things then. That to me, it's not about he should be blamed for the loss and he shouldn't have said those things. It's about, this is fascinating because Joe Burrow doesn't say those things in a moment like that where he could clearly take ownership of it himself and be the leader that we know him to be. He's Bengalized. He is broken right now. That's what that said to me. And we just saw, I mean, what more evidence do you need of it than the performance he just put on Sunday?
Yeah, just for clarification, you meant the post-game Bills, not post-game Ravens. But
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I just want people to be clarified there.
Thank you.
And then to follow that up with the Wednesday one, and then to follow it up with the performance against the Ravens, I mean, it all just adds up into a guy who's totally broken at the moment.
Yes. And, I thought one thing that was interesting was Albert Breer did his mailbag segment and included something about Joe Burrow's comments. And he said that he and Joe have a relationship. They've talked about it. And Joe has told him that he wants to be the, quote, change agent in Cincinnati and that the old Bengals are dead. And Albert Breer said he still believes Joe feels that way. And I don't doubt at all that they've had those conversations. I don't doubt at all that those are things that Joe Burrow has said. But to me, the last 2 weeks, what we've seen from Joe Burrow in those press conferences, I don't know if it's fully gone from him, but it's signaling that he's losing that mentality. He's losing that idea of, I'm going to be able to change this myself. He's realizing this thing can't be fixed. This thing can't be changed because that ownership group owns the organization.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. I really do. Now, again, can he maybe with an offseason take a deep breath and go, okay, I'm going to give this old college try again. Hopefully the roster's rebuilt a little bit in the offseason and things will change next year. And that's why I go back to I'm really interested in what it looks like on Sunday. Like, does he have the fire to go play a meaningless game against a bad team on the road and put this all behind him and maybe take that positive foot forward to kind of get himself back together again? I honestly don't know what to expect. I really don't.
He was more upbeat this week when you guys talked to him. He mentioned that he plans on playing for a long time. He plans on playing at a high level for a long time. Those types of things to try to maybe quiet the rumblings that he's going to pull an Andrew Luck and quit on him or request a trade out of Cincinnati or something like that. But people inside the Bengals, at least from what I heard, talking to maybe some people that cover the team and others that were involved in that whole situation, have said that the people inside the organization are trying to play off last week's press conference from Joe Burrow as, well, Joe's just kind of an emo kid. He does this way more often than you guys know about. This is pretty standard for him. No big deal. It's just a standard Wednesday for Joe. He just wasn't feeling well or whatever and decided to talk about it. One, do you buy into that at all? And two, my answer would be like, okay, that's fine if he's like that in his private life and his day-to-day with you guys, but he's never done that publicly that we've seen in a press conference before. So regardless of whether he's like that off camera, this was on camera, and he does things intentionally on camera, and he showed that on camera.
That's the overriding point. Your last point you just made is whatever he does on camera is intentional. It's done with a purpose, and that's where I do think it was alarming.
He said the most important thing to him going forward right now is to be available for the team. That's top of mind for him. He's playing in these meaningless games at the end of the year now. How do you view that? I know we've talked about it a little bit, but this was before they were mathematically eliminated. Now that they are mathematically eliminated, the team looked completely checked out last week. What do you think about him playing these last few weeks out? And also, like, to me, if you're saying you want to be available, I don't care if you're available for these final few weeks. You would be focused on being healthy for next year if you're really worried about being available.
But he also said, I want to play football. It's what I do. I want to play.
Sure, but you want to be available to your organization and be responsible to them. To me, that would be like, okay, I'm not going to worry about my stats the rest of this year. I'm going to hang it up and make sure I'm healthy.
Yeah, I think he just wants to play. It's a game, and he wants to play the game. And I get it. To me, the comments about trying to be available, I have to change my style of play a little bit. I can't extend plays, run around like a crazy man all the time. Got to pick my spots when I have an avenue to get out. When I don't, just throw it away and live to play another day. I think that's the part to me that he hopefully is starting to grasp of, I can't be Superman on every single solitary snap. I got to live to play another play every once in a while.
Any other thoughts here from the Bengals, what came out of the press conferences this week?
No, I just go back to the whole week in a nutshell, from not cleaning off the seats to the snafu of people trying to get into your game. You couldn't get people who wanted to come to that game on that particular god-awful weather day, and you couldn't figure out a way to get them in on time. It just smacks again of they don't care. And why should you as a fan?